The committee will come to order. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Madam Chair.
Here.
Rep. Franz.
Here.
Crawford.
Here.
Daly.
Here.
Janetsky.
Here.
Lund. McMillan.
Here.
Hooker.
Here.
Jacobson.
Here.
Price. Yonker.
Here.
Lipton. Kniezek.
Here.
Brinks. Stallworth.
Here.
Lamonte. Abed. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Excellent, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes from Wednesday, September 25th?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Franz. What? Actually, I'd like to withdraw that motion. Thank you. We don't have minutes yet.
Oh, okay.
Creatures of habit. We'll get right to our agenda. We have House Concurrent Resolution 1111, sponsored by Representative Tim Kelly. Representative Kelly, would you like to join us? Before Representative Kelly begins, you all have a substitute in front of you, which has made some modifications to the resolution as introduced. I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt, but I'll first ask if there are any questions on some of the changes that were made. Brief highlights of them were tightening up some of the language on the student data availability. Additionally, on the second page, for the in the resolution that says the State Board of Education shall present a report or testimony on any new education standards. We also included new assessment tools. In addition, there was a change. It said before implementation. We changed it to before final board approval. I guess Representative McMillan, there were a few suggestions with regards to the flexibility in terms of subject matter. If you'd like to highlight them, you don't have to. They're in the resolution, but you're good.
We can talk about it during the testimony.
Okay, sounds good. Is there a motion to adopt the substitute? So moved by Representative Price. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
To adopt substitute H1 for House Concurrent Resolution 11. Representative Lipton.
Yes.
Kniezek.
Yes.
Brinks.
Yes.
Stallworth.
Yes.
Lamonte.
Yes.
Abed.
Yes.
Lyons.
Yes.
Crawford, or excuse me, Franz.
Yes.
Crawford.
Yes.
Daly.
Yes.
Janetsky.
Yes.
Lund. McMillan.
No.
Hooker.
Pass.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Price.
Yes.
Yonker.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 14 yes votes, 1 nay vote, and 1 pass. The substitute is adopted.
Thank you. The sub being adopted. Representative Kelly, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Madam Chair and fellow members. As a chair of a subcommittee that was appointed to vet the Common Core over the summer, we held, as you remember, there was a pause that was put in the budget, and my subcommittee was tasked with, again, vetting the Common Core as to its relevance, rigor, and that the Michigan State Board of Ed adopted 3 years ago, as constitutionally is their purview to do so. And after 17 hours, expert testimony from both sides, both pro and con, I think it is my considered opinion that we move forward with Common Core to lift the pause. I think that what you see before you is the work of a lot of meetings outside of those 17 hours. Work with several of your committee members back and forth. I think that we addressed most, if not all, concerns. as far as what can and cannot be done with Common Core, what the locals can and cannot do. Again, I think that this is all well covered. Again, it's work that spent an awful lot of time, an awful lot of effort getting to this point. For me, it was always something that I think that working with education for the last 20 years, the simple idea of standards from one end of the country to the next, one top of the from the bottom of the state to the top of the state, that everybody were held to some degree to the same standard. I think that that's representative in Common Core. I think that we all have issues perhaps with an assessment that's being worked on, but we say continue to work, but we're looking for options. Again, that's reflected in this this resolution. So today I ask for your support, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Representative Kelly. I have one before we start opening it up to the rest of the committee. There was the changes made to the data information. Can you kind of go over what was changed and how that is better?
Well, I don't know that there was a lot changed regarding, are you talking about data collection?
Yes, sir.
I believe the only change was that we changed the negative to at the end instead of the beginning. The student information by knowing that non-educated related information on students or their families, including but not limited to religion, political affiliations, or biometric data, will be collected, tracked, housed, reported, sold, or shared with the federal government or outside entities. I think we tightened it up from the original.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Representative Abed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want some clarification because some of the issues I had were put in here and addressed, but not clearly, and so I just want to make sure it says what I think it says, or if it could be misinterpreted. So if you could look at the second page where it talks about, we're going to talk about the developmental standards, and that has been one of my primary concerns is the developmental standards for K through 3, because there's been much research and experts that have said that is developmentally inappropriate. Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure where you put that in the sentence, and it reads, I'll just start, right at the very end. It says, should they determine different standards and will lead to more rigorous expectations for their students, such as the teaching of high school geometry and English, as well as developmental standards for kindergarten through 3rd grade. What I'm wanting to know here is for myself and maybe for the average reader, when you look at that, it sounds like we can only go with appropriate developmental standards if it's more rigorous. So I'm just wanting to make sure that what we're saying here, those two words, because the and will lead to more rigorous expectations wasn't in the original statute, so this is added language, and I just want to make sure that's not, I'm sure it wasn't the intent, but I just want to make sure.
I can tell you what the intent
Thank you.
is.
I would appreciate that.
And the intent is that these were examples of things and of concerns that we would hope that and we'll be watching, that the Michigan Department of Ed take into consideration as further implementation and development goes along.
Would you be willing to take I would love it if you could just take a look at the language. I'm afraid, and maybe because of the comma at a certain place, maybe that means that doesn't stand for that, but the way I read it right now says to me that then in order for the developmental standards to be looked at, it has to be more rigorous. And what my concern is we may be expecting kids to do something developmentally that they're not at that stage yet. So I just worry about the language a little bit. I appreciate the attempt, and I appreciate the, why you're doing it. I just worry a little bit about the language.
What if you just on the fly here is if you just did or developmental standards for kindergarten?
Yes, I would either and will lead to more rigorous expectation, either take that out, or if you could put an or somewhere where we can make sure that we are not tying rigor to the developmental stages. Thank you
We
very
can do
much.
that.
Thank you. Representative Janetzky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Representative Kelly. Appreciate your being here. As far as you're concerned, as per this resolution, where are we as far as the Smarter Balanced assessment?
Well, I think what this says about the Smarter Balance is that I think there's lots of red flags that's inherent in this that I think are not only implied but fairly explicit about we're concerned about where with the Smarter Balance, and we're looking for alternatives. That it asks for a study to be done to give us, what are other assessments are available, and then to recommend to the legislature what the best one is.
If I may, Mr. Chair, with a second question.
Yes, absolutely.
Relative to the personal information that was referenced before by another representative, is the language tight enough such that that any information gleaned from the Smarter Balance assessment or whatever testing will be put in place, that the information will only be between the student, the teacher, the student's parents, the local district, and no further than the State Department of Education? I understand that it won't be sold out of state or sent to the federal government, but is the language tight enough in your mind that it won't be sold to any Michigan businesses without the permission of the student or the parent or anyone else relative?
I think it is. I think that there's ample safeguards in here, not only in an existing statute, but in this resolution as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And would members please note, since this is a very lengthy resolution, some of the members are asking, when you're referring to a certain section, identify the paragraph and the page so that everybody can know what the questions are about. So when you do that, as we go down the road. Once again, Representative Abed.
Thank you. The other concern was, as some of the other representatives said, was regarding the Smarter Balanced. I just want to make sure that are we saying in this piece then that we can say no? I have very, very strong concerns about Smarter Balanced. And so will we have that option as legislators to be able to say, if they present it to us, or is that something that the state board is going to come before us and they're going to make that decision? I just have a lot of reservations regarding Smarter Balance.
Well, again, I'm just read through this, if you will. Resolve, the State Board of Education, Michigan Department of Education shall issue a full report, which is to be submitted to both chambers of the legislature by December 1st. This report is to include a review of all available student assessment tools with a special emphasis on an assessment based on Michigan state standards, common that we've adopted.
Right.
And adaptation thereof. The report should also include information on how the assessments would be used and the implementation costs for local school districts and the state of Michigan. This House is not committed to any specific assessment tool, but intends to evaluate all assessment options in the FY 2014-15 school aid budget based on this report. I think that it's inherent upon them to do their due diligence on this, to come back with an honest assessment of what their recommendations are before this board. And I think that what we're trying to get at is I think what we're kind of looking for is a Michigan specific,
Right.
if you can. If indeed we have some adjustments to what it is that we want to do with the standards, that assessment should reflect those. And I think that's kind of what we're asking for. I think it's some of the things that some other states have done, and I think that's the intent to get to there.
Mr. Chair, if I may just follow up one quick question, just for clarification. So what you're saying is if they bring it forward to us and then we're still not happy with the Smarter Balance, can there be a no given at that time? Or
Well, I think the no would be through the lack of appropriations.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure we still have that flexibility to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Yonker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You just clarified. My question was, as we stopped appropriations for the testing to do the vetting process, we still have that same authority with the department on this testing, because that's a separate item, separate from the court, correct?
Yes.
Thanks.
And Representative Hooker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the second page, the second paragraph, it mentions the implementation of the Common Core standards by the State Board and by Michigan Department of Education is contingent on the ability of Michigan to add or remove standards in the best interest of our students with no ramifications from the federal government. Is the decision-making for that left up to the State Board of Education and or Michigan Department of Education, or is it ultimately going to come back to us?
I think it's, I don't know that it necessarily comes back to us for the standards. I don't think the legislature wants to get in the standards writing business, but we are in the appropriations business. So I think that this is what we're saying is we're giving local there's flexibility at the local level, flexibility at the state level to add or subtract things for a Michigan specific that what we're looking for.
If I can follow up.
Absolutely.
In the next, actually 2 paragraphs down, says the State Board of Ed and the Michigan Department of Ed may implement Common Core standards so long as control over the creation and implementation of curriculum, textbooks, educational materials, and instruction methods shall remain under the control of the local school districts. Practice shows that textbooks are built or are created by the largest states and the direction that those largest states go. And really local school districts or the state of Michigan probably has little, if any, control over what is written in those textbooks. And most major textbooks are decided in either Texas or California. So I'm sorry, but, we're talking about local control, and it's not going to happen.
Well, Tom, let's go back to MEP standards, for instance. Nothing different was that. We had MEP standards, and yet we bought textbooks for Michigan students, or local districts bought textbooks for Michigan students that were, again, I don't disagree with it, dictated by the large buyers, Texas, California, that my guess is were not particularly reflective of the MEP standards. Yet those were the textbooks used. Now, I would offer that in today's world of change in publishing, that there could be vendors, and I suspect that they will pop up, that will offer state-specific books, textbooks, aligned to the Common Core that you would be able to choose from, rather than just whatever, the largest. I think that there's an opportunity for suppliers here, vendors, to adopt to whichever state they're selling in to provide the best materials that they possibly can.
Don't you agree, too, that the test will be written to meet those standards in those states?
Well, again,
almost every publisher will go that direction.
No, and for the sake of argument, Smarter Balance, you've got 2 national test consortiums that are being developed right now, PARC and Smarter Balance. Michigan's in Smarter Balance. We currently chair the Smarter Balance, so there's Michigan direct input on what those test items might be. So I would suggest that there's some important influence that we wield right now that's that's given to those large textbook manufacturers or publishers. So I think that I don't know that we're just necessarily here adopting something that's again, I think we're providing all sorts of different controls in which to make it as and guarantee as best we can Michigan specific activity, not only in what we're reading but what we're teaching.
It isn't a Common Core curriculum designed to unify what's being taught across the country.
There is or there isn't?
Isn't the Common Core curriculum designed to unify
Well, I
what's
would argue
being
the
taught
Common
and
Core is a
tested?
standard, not a curriculum.
Thank you very much. Representative Janetzky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Rep. Kelly, I don't know that we've properly thanked you for conducting that subcommittee and those many, many, many hours of testimony that you and that subcommittee had to deal with. I believe the cruel and unusual punishment quote was a very fair moniker there.
Appreciate it.
But again, in looking at page 2, paragraph 2, where we reference resolve that implementation of the Common Core standards by the State Board of Education and the Michigan Department of Education is contingent upon the ability of Michigan to add or remove standards that are in the best interests of the students in Michigan with no ramifications from the federal government. I think that was all of our understanding all along, that the state always had the power to do that, to add and subtract standards. And the reference to no ramifications from the federal government, I don't think many of us were concerned about that, but the ramifications come with whatever test is put in place, the Smarter Balance Assessment, and that's why I think so many of us have had concerns relative to that. So should we read into that sentence that we can add or remove standards without worry of being punished with whatever testing direction the state decides to go
Well,
in?
that's certainly my take on it. We had testimony, again, from more than one saying that, there are no Common Core police here, that we're, I think several states, if you've seen since the early adoption of these standards, have done much like we did, any kind of pauses that have stepped back and said, well, we want to make sure that we're in control of this. And the states, I think, that have paused and determined that, yes, we are, or no, we're not, have dealt with that. We think we are. I mean, again, and we've had people testify to that, that there are no police, that we are a local control state. They knew that. We know that. And I think that we have those safeguards in place.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, with a
Quickly, we're starting to get long.
different direction, but as per this resolution, what is your understanding, Representative Kelly, as far as the state's implementation of the Next Generation Science Standards?
That was put on hold by the Michigan Department of Ed. I think that the language herein, I think, also suggests strongly to them that that there's some other issues ahead. I think what this does is this resolution lifts the pause and continues with the development, implementation, but with, again, all these concerns addressed and next-gen science standards being one of those. I think that they've, because of this, the Michigan Department of Ed, the State Board of Ed, would not be desirous of trying to get into another I think that the marketing of this earlier was seen to be less than it could have been. And I think going forward, any and all things regarding Common Core, I think they'll be trying to go outside, bend over backwards, trying to accommodate as much concerns as people want to give.
I will say that your words regarding the State Board of Education's due diligence referencing this issue are much more kind than mine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative McMillan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Kelly, for your work. I guess I'd like to focus on the Smarter Balance test. We hear this standards aren't curriculum, but they certainly drive curriculum. We heard from a geometry teacher during testimony that for 5,000 years they've taught geometry one way, and she said her kids have gone to Stanford and Harvard, that now they are forcing me to teach a different way, and it doesn't make any sense. And even Fordham Institute, who everybody is counting on their blessing on Common Core, said that geometry is not very good. I mean, it's problematic. There's some problems in it. So, I really do think that, and certainly when you add SBAC, the Smarter Balance, that people teach to the test. I mean, if it's going to be on there, and their school will be color coded based on how that goes, or potentially teacher evaluations, and who knows what else, maybe merit pay. That they're going to teach to the test, and that will drive curriculum, in my opinion. So, I'd like to focus on the Smarter Balance, and I've got a plethora of reasons why I have a problem with it. I think that the state board,
Representative, we don't have time for plethora, but if you get to
the
a
state
point.
board shouldn't have gotten into it because they should have. It's tens of millions of dollars. There's all kinds of problems with Smarter.
Well, we're going to find that out in a report.
The question I have is that in the resolution it says state board and MDE is going to come to us by December 1st and review all available assessment tools. But being in Smarter Balance that we are committed to advocating for the success of Smarter Balance only. That's what the MOU says. So how can they do an evaluation that is truly an evaluation? Don't they have a conflict of interest there? If they're supposed to assess the tools out there, and yet they're also committed to the success of Smarter Balance only.
Well, regarding the MOU, I don't know honestly how binding that is. There's some would opine that an MOU signed under a former governor isn't necessarily relevant or binding to a new governor. So I think that there's some we can look into that. Again, I think we're putting something too much emphasis on a work group and a work group's arrangements.
Which work group?
If you will.
Smarter Balance?
Yeah.
But
Consortium.
we're committed to its success. And I mean, we're certainly engaging as though we feel that this is fully operational. So
well, Tom, this is an argument you and I, that we've had over the summer. You believe that we're constrained. I believe we're not. So it's. I don't know what to tell you. We've had people come up and testify. There are no Common Core police. There's flexibility built into this, so I don't feel quite as feel bound as you do.
I just think that we don't have flexibility as long as there's Smarter Balance. I think if we have control of our own test and it's deciding the questions, then we do. I could argue potentially. I still think there's copyright issues and other issues, but nonetheless, I truly do think that people aren't going to be harmed by it. Kids. We can decide what's going to be on the test. So I think that getting out of Smarter Balance, it's a year and a half away from when they're supposed to start. It's clear they don't know what they're doing. They got a 7-week window. I mean, kids will be taking it 7 weeks different from other kids in this nation. I mean, we're going to have questions that are going to be circulating on the internet. I mean, it's a debacle right now, and I think a lot of people acknowledge that. So I think if we got out, had a very objective review of the assessments, that's a good compromise. I think that's a good
I think and for that matter, Tom, I don't think that there's any fight over having an independent study, this study be done by an independent source either.
Thank you very much. One more time, Representative Abed, and we're really getting long, so please be quick.
In fact, your last statement, I would really appreciate that because I share Mr. McMillan's concerns about Representative McMillan as far as being fair and not having conflict of interest. So if we could have an outside someone that's doing that, that would help with that conflict of interest in trying to push one particular test. So I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. With no further questions, you're dismissed from the firing squad. Next, I'd like to call up Deb DeBacher from Stop Common Core in Michigan. I'm going to ask that you keep all folks keep their comments as close to 5 minutes as possible. There will be lots of questions. So, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee.
Deb, can you push the button, please? Thank you very much.
I didn't know it got shut off. Sorry. Thank you. And I have a few issues with some of the resolves. I think one was mentioned that we aren't worrying about the federal government having any problems with us. It's the results of the smarter tests. I still don't see down on paragraph 8, Representative Kelly said that we will not share this information with the federal government and outside entities, but I don't see the word outside entities there. So there's a lot of reasons that Smarter would cause a problem, because with our Smarter contract, it says that Smarter will relay student-level data to the federal government. So if we don't get out of this Smarter, we're not going to be able to keep this data privacy that we want in these resolves. It just won't work with that Smarter contract. Reason also to get out of Smarter right now is because we're doing all these pilot tests, and we're going to have the same problem as Common Core. Well, we've already spent all this time on it now. We don't want to back out. That's what we're going to hear. We need to do this now. I have my testimony here for you to see, and I want to remind you that there's always strings attached to anything the federal government pays for, and whether you're Democrat or Republican, at some point you won't like the strings attached. No Child Left Behind, charter school expansion, that came with Race to the Top under the Obama administration, so both sides don't like strings attached. It's a consortium, if you want to understand that, signed on by Jennifer Granholm and the Board of Ed, contracted to write Michigan tests. We were just one vote of 26 states. And on top of it, not only is the federal government paying for these tests, they have a federal validation team who will review Smarter tests for item design and valuation. The questions, they will review the questions. Now, how are we going to tell the federal government we don't like certain questions that don't fit with our Michigan standards? This just will not work. We cannot have flexibility with Smarter. I have the periodicals attached that report that, and the actual page from the Department of Ed saying they're setting up these federal review teams to review the questions. Right now, there's no governance rules to tell us how a state can challenge a question, change a question, or eliminate a question. Smarter has this contract with Michigan, if you go even look at Department of Ed website, not only to write year-end testing, but interim, what's called formative tests. So teachers will have to teach exactly, with exact timing with these formative tests, what the Smarter wants them to teach at a certain time of the year. That's why 6 states have withdrawn from their testing consortium: Alabama, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Oklahoma, Florida. Utah, Texas, Nebraska never signed on. Just 2 days ago, Governor Walker of Wisconsin has said that he doesn't like Common Core and he thinks they can do better. So there's a hint what's going on there. Below is and I have an excerpt from the Georgia superintendent. They pulled out, and he said, finally and arguably the most important consideration adopting PARCC assessment would limit the ability of Georgia educators to make adjustments or changes to our standards. If Georgia educators determine that with certain standards need to be shifted or revised, we'd run the risk of no longer being aligned with PARCC assessment. Such misalignment would put our students at a disadvantage.
Could you please wrap up where?
So, and the next part I have here is what happened in New York. They're ahead of us with the testing. The kids went from 70 to 37% passing rate on Long Island, 1,500 parents protesting. This is a left-right coalition and a political fallout if Smarter doesn't work.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Any questions from the committee? Thank you for your testimony. Next up, we have, it looks like Stephanie Heffiker. I apologize. Lapeer County Homeschoolers. And here again, just a reminder, we've got several people want to speak. We're long on time already. Please keep it to 5 minutes or so. Thank you. Push the button for me, please. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I hope my comments are interesting enough to keep everyone's attention. Thus far in this meeting, I have felt like a child in the classroom being distracted by a lot of whispering that's going on in the corners. But my comments are short and brief. I appreciate your time and your sacrifice to serve our state and the good people here. I would like to represent many of the homeschoolers in Lapeer County. I would say our group alone has about 180 kids. There are 3 other groups in Lapeer County functioning, and one has just started, so there's a lot of us. I come here with a great concern for the future educational opportunities for the children in Michigan. No one will disagree that many of our children are suffering or struggling in school. And I agree that on the surface, having a common core of standards sounds good. However, this process of securing free government prizes to help our schools seems suspect to me. The application process for Phase 1 lasted only 2 months, from November 2009 to January 2010. And of the 500 points possible for each state to earn on the application, 70 points were given if the state signed on to adopting common standards. However, these standards were not even published until March. So in essence, 45 states signed on to common standards, sight unseen, Michigan being one of them. Thankfully, almost half of those states have since postponed implementation. Again, Michigan, thankfully, being one of them. On that same application, 47 points were awarded if the state agreed to implement data retrieval systems to track the kids. Again, data systems not yet fully explained. That 47 points plus the 70 equals 117 points out of 500, which is 23% of the possible points on this application. During Phase 1, Massachusetts earned an A with the highest possible amount of points on the application for their already successful math and English programs. So they did not sign on to adopting different curriculum standards, thinking theirs were already good enough. They placed 13th. This meant they didn't win any money the first time around. During Phase 2, the only thing they changed on their application was their willingness to adopt these common standards. They moved up in ranking to number 1 and won $250 million for Phase 2. I believe that that alone shows the importance of this adopting of common standards to earn this free prize money. As a note, on the application, the states could only earn 10 points, only 10 points out of 500 for intervening in lowest achieving schools, which would seem to be of far more value and worth for points towards receiving funding for collecting data, or for collecting, worth more points towards receiving funding than collecting data and adopting new standards. I would like to quote from a Fox News article, August 8th, and I quote, Stanford professor James Milgram, the only mathematician on the Common Core Validation Committee, refused to sign off on the math standards, calling the whole thing, in large measure, a political document. Excuse me. During the testimony that he gave in May of 2011, he said, I had considerable influence on the mathematics standards in the document. However, as is often the case, there was input from many other sources, including state departments of education, that had to be incorporated into the standards, he said. A number of these sources were mainly focused on things like making the standards as non-challenging as possible. Others were focused on making sure their favorite topics were present and handled in the way they liked, adding that it led to a number of extremely serious failings in the Common Core. It is my contention that the state of Michigan, like so many other states, signed on to something before understanding the details. Former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi said of the Affordable Health Care Act that we need to pass it so that we know what's in it. Well, we're now learning that it is anything but affordable. When the government is concerned, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Please, committee members, let's learn from that. Let's stop the implementation of Common Core while we can. Let's not implement Common Core at all in Michigan. You have the power to stop this process and change your minds. You agreed to adopt new standards in exchange for free prize money that you didn't even get any. Please don't feel obligated.
Please wrap it up.
I have
Thank you.
2 sentences, yes. Please don't feel obligated. stand up and say, no thanks, we can take care of our own kids. Common Core is just common politics. Our kids deserve better.
Thank you, Ms. Hufker. I have one question, Representative Hooker.
Yes, thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question would be asked, as a homeschool parent, why are you concerned? My thought would be, and you can confirm this if you think, is that these standards, the tests, will be used by universities and colleges to consider admittance into those colleges and universities. Am I correct?
Partly, yes. You will notice at the end of my statement, I have 6 children. 2 of them went to high school, public school. 1 of them is still in school. So I am a homeschooler, and they have a child in school. In regards to the homeschooling community, though, in your question, 2 things. One, yes, these are just standards, but as has been mentioned earlier, standards affect curriculum. Curriculum affects testing. And the homeschoolers rely heavily on their grades for the ACT and the SAT to get into universities. And so I know the ACT has already started changing their test questions to reflect Common Core standards and the things that are changing in the curriculum. So that's part of it. The second thing for homeschoolers is we like and are grateful in the state of Michigan that we have the freedom to homeschool. And we see this as another huge overreach by the federal government to control the education of our children. And we see that as a slippery slope. And once the federal government controls the education completely, if they decide, oh, you know what, homeschooling is illegal now, and some of the states are saying, no, it is legal, then you have a states' rights issue, and it's just a slippery slope, and we don't even want to go there.
Thank you, Representative Abid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your testimony, and you make some excellent points. One of the things I just want to present is a different way that I'm looking at it and seeing if this might ease some of your concerns as far as the standards, not regarding the testing. But from my years of experience in the school, it's testing that usually guides the curriculum. You know, whatever test it is, you're going to teach to the test, as Representative McMillan said. And then that decides on how you're going to teach the standards. So sometimes standards are pretty broad in nature, but how do you, like what choices in books you're going to use, how you're going to teach it, what methods you're going to use. So it's pretty wide, but the testing will then guide, what the curriculum is, which will then decide what the standards are. So and from where I'm coming from, and I don't know if you see a difference too, and I was wanting to ask you, do you feel a difference between the testing and the standards? I mean, could you see how maybe the testing part of it is a concern where the standards might be something that with Michigan having more control over might ease some of your concerns?
Well, to be honest, first of all, I wasn't expecting questions, so I have to think about that. But I guess as you were talking, one of the thoughts that popped into my head, and everybody has a difference of opinion, but you can maybe argue which comes first, the chicken or the egg, and so which influences which, curriculum or testing. In regards to, I guess your question. When you're saying testing, are you talking about like what you were talking about earlier, the smarter balance testing? Okay, I have a hard time believing, personally, that the federal government will give us very much wiggle room, and so even the question of whether or not we can get out of the smarter balance assessment, I question, and so. To me, it just seems like there will be more strings attached that we don't even see yet, which was brought up before.
So the real issue is more for you trust that what's being said will actually happen.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Seeing no further questions, thank you for your presentation. All right, we have two individuals I think want to come up together, Douglas Levesque and Tim Schmig. Is that correct?
Thank you.
And just a reminder, we're trying to keep this, so everybody gets presentation time and question time. Please keep your presentation to about 5 minutes, okay?
Exactly right. I do want to thank you for your time today and for your public service to our state. It is appreciated. The Michigan Association of Christian Schools has a very real concern with Common Core and with Common Core standards and also the smarter balanced approach. It's our concern that these decisions should be handled best on the local level. We have seen federal educational programs like No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top, and they start out with a great flash, great spin, only to spin out of control and pretty much be forgotten. And the point I would make is we don't have to do this right now. The advancement of Common Core standards, this whole thing has bypassed our legislative process. We're being dictated from the top down. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. with our national organization. And we had, at our national organization, we had a representative from the U.S. Department of Ed come and try to answer some of the questions for Common Core standards and a balanced assessment. And what we found out was we were definitely dealing with semantics, in that every concern that we addressed, they would say, their knee-jerk response was, that's not what this is about. That's not what this is about. If we said Common Core, if we said curriculum, instantly they said, we're talking standards. So we couldn't say the word curriculum because we weren't speaking the language they were talking. So then we started saying Common Core standards. But then we thought, well, what is in the bill? What is in Common Core standards? Tell us what they are. And the only response we got from the Department of Ed was, it's very good. Trust us on this. Now, I came of age politically in the 1980s, and Ronald Reagan made a statement that the last thing you want to hear is, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you. And so, you know, trust but verify. What is there? And then the mining of the data, some of the questions that were asked on there, I put the website on here that you can go to, nces.ed.gov. They're telling you what they're going to ask. Questions like religious affiliation, religious consideration, voting status, total cost of education of the student, family income range, dwelling ownership, base salary and wage. This is none of their business. And, you know, I think all we have to do is look at the news or read the newspaper to see what data mining problems have come from this of late. And so we're with the Michigan Association of Christian Schools. Why would we even be here? Well, we pastor churches that have students that attend both the Christian school and the public school. This will affect our parents. This will affect the students that we come in contact with. And, you know, so really the final analysis on this whole thing is, and you can read the testimony that we've left there, is we at the Michigan Association believe that this fight is up to you. We're looking to you just to put a pause on this. We don't have to do this right now. States have opted out of it. Florida, Missouri, and Ohio have introduced bills just to not go any farther with this. Rick Scott ordered the State Education Department of Florida to withdraw from the national consortium. Pennsylvania and Missouri have passed bills on this. Indiana, Governor Pence has signed a law to get them out of Common Core. I do believe the students in Indiana will be educated and they will be accepted in colleges and universities. And so I'm just saying we don't have to do this now. There's enough red flags that we should hit the brakes and say, let's take a serious look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. And please introduce yourself and proceed.
Yes, my name is Dr. Doug Levesque. I'm the pastor of Emmanuel Baptist Church in Corona, Michigan. Also on the board of the Michigan Association of Christian Schools. I have a Christian school in our church. Also, I served for 9 years on the board of Pensacola Christian College, which is also the purveyor of Abeka Books, which is the largest Christian and private curriculum seller and distributor in the world. And the reason they are is because people want what they sell. And the reason they are is because their scope and sequence works. They have a scope and sequence that is based upon standards. Standards that they have studied, standards based upon history, and standards that work. Those standards absolutely turn into test questions, which absolutely turn into curriculum. It is why the curriculum sells well. People might have a different opinion of what kind of curriculum they'd want to choose, and that's why nothing should be mandated from anybody, anywhere, even through the state. Local school boards should be able to really determine what those things are. I wanted to say, if this HCR 11 is so amorphous and adaptable and benign, why do we have to run so heavily on it? Why do we have to vote on it now? I think it has less to do with education, because like we said, we just went to D.C. and no one was able to really give us a set of standards. Nobody's seen a set of standards. All due respect to Mr. Kelly, we're being sold a mortgage without seeing the house. You don't know what the questions are. You don't know what the standards are. Let's not dip into the purse. I married my wife several years ago. She got into my wallet, and she's still there. And so we don't want the nose of the elephant coming in here. That's what we're concerned about. And it's not just education. It absolutely has to do with religious liberty. One more final story. None of you were probably here in 1986 sitting at these tables. But in 1986, this committee and the legislature was asked to vote on teacher certification. Christian schools came out of the woodworks, and homeschoolers came out of the woodworks, and we had almost 30,000 people out here on the state lawn, the largest gathering of people ever. And we were saying we were against teacher certification. We had a different set of qualifications for teachers. The legislation passed. In other words, we lost. But for 27 years, we've been in non-compliance with that particular law, still running our schools with great effect. And at that point in time, the dropout rate was 9.9% in Michigan. Today, it's 10.71%. A simple Google schedule will see that there are hundreds of Michigan-certified teachers who have been arrested for drugs, alcohol, and sexual immorality, even with students. So teacher certification didn't help anything. It didn't work.
So let's bring this back to Common Core.
Well, it comes back to Common Core, and if you've been listening, this totally comes back to Common Core if you've been listening. What I'm saying is in 27 years, we'll be discussing with another thing, because as far as Common Core is concerned, there are hundreds of thousands of constituents in this state, including myself, that absolutely will not comply. And there's nothing anyone's going to do about it. Our students will continue to learn, do well, graduate, succeed, and the dropout rate will continue to do whatever it's going to do. Common curriculum, Common Core. It is common curriculum, no matter what Mr. Kelly wants to counter in the talking points. And so the state of Michigan's against this. Thank you for listening to the voice of the people.
I appreciate it. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation, gentlemen. Thank you for staying on time. I appreciate it very much. Next up, we have Elaine Barrett. Is that correct? She represents herself and other concerned parents. And reminder, just keep it close to 5 minutes if you would.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for your time first. And also, I apologize. When I wrote up my remarks yesterday, I thought we were dealing with HR 226, and it's changed to HCR 11, so we'll address that. I'll try to read quickly because I know that we don't have a lot of time. My name is Elaine Beret, and I'm here today to urge you to vote against this resolution and any future legislation that comes before you to promote the Common Core. I'm a homeschooling mother who, to this point, and along with my husband, has made the decision to homeschool our children until they reach high school age, and then we send them to the public high school. I currently have two daughters, a freshman and a junior at Lapeer East High School. Last year, when my oldest was a sophomore at Lapeer East, we began to have some really grave concerns about the quality of the English curriculum there. I obtained a copy of the curriculum for the year in its entirety from my daughter's teacher. It contained no novels planned for the entire year. They weren't studying any novels. It did, however, include inappropriate and vulgar short stories with no literary merit that were written according to the publisher's own estimation at about a 6th grade reading level. It also contained an entire trimester of reading newspaper op-ed pieces and looking at political cartoons. Interestingly, one of them made a reference to Big Brother, George Orwell. And my daughter had the class in the afternoon, and the teacher said, "Does anybody get this reference? None of my morning students have gotten this reference." Well, of course they didn't get the reference. They're not reading George Orwell. How are they supposed to get it? My daughter was the only one in her class who did. So in addition to that entire trimester of op-ed pieces and political cartoons, they also, in a separate trimester, did a poetry unit which contained poems by rappers such as Mos Def and the Notorious B.I.G. When my husband and I met with members of the English faculty, the principal, and the executive director of secondary instruction, we were told that this content-deficient curriculum is in line with core standards. To be sure, they defended the curriculum, red-faced and blustery to the hilt, and tried to explain to me why I just didn't understand what was so good about it. Just so you know, I have a degree in English. At one time, I had secondary education teaching credentials, which I let expire a long time ago because I wasn't using them. I was teaching my kids at home. To be clear, because there is a distinction, I have a degree in English, not in English education. An English degree required me to study a lot more in my content area than an English education degree would have. So I recognize a strong English curriculum when I see one. What I saw last year, this core-aligned curriculum, was not a strong English curriculum. This core standards-aligned curriculum at our local high school is abysmal, and we have since pulled our daughters out of the English classes offered by Lapeer East, opting instead to enroll them in virtual English classes that have them reading Shakespeare, Socrates, Fitzgerald, and Austen, among others. I have been homeschooling my 5 children using the K-12 curriculum since 2003. Because most of K-12's business comes through virtual charter schools, which, as you know, are public schools, the company has also been retooling its math and English curricula to align with Common Core. I have been in the unique position to see and experience a rigorous, top-notch curriculum change to meet the core standards. It hasn't been pretty. The math curriculum has become confusing and frustrating for my younger children, and the language arts curriculum, though not as bad, has gotten weaker. This curriculum, which gave my oldest daughter the strong academic foundation that led her to getting a score of 31 on the ACT as a sophomore, she's only taken it once, is now Common Core aligned and disappointing. It might be easy for you to dismiss this as one example, one curriculum company, one unfortunate happenstance, but I know it's not. I've seen examples, and I've heard of other examples from other curricula, which have been aligned to or developed around the Common Core standards, and generally they're even worse than what K-12 has done. While at first blush your resolution today sounds noble with all of its language about preserving Michigan's local districts' rights to develop their own curricula and maintain their autonomy in implementing the standards, this simply will not happen. There is no language in the resolution to exclude or preclude Michigan's participation in the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortia, which we've talked about today. These assessments are being developed with federal government money and federal government oversight, and they are about testing students exclusively based on the Common Core standards. Your resolution can say that schools and teachers can do what they want with the core standards, but we all know that what is tested will be taught. As long as Michigan participates in Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortia, Michigan students will be force-fed substandard Common Core curricula. Earlier this month, I had the opportunity to go to a conference on the Common Core at the University of Notre Dame, and it was fascinating and frightening all at once. I wish I had time to talk about everything that I learned there. I wish I had time to talk about the Common Core's dubious beginnings behind closed doors with no input from parents or educators. I wish I had time to talk in more detail about the federal Race to the Top grant, which required states to commit to adopting Common Core before the standards were even written if they wanted any of that money. I would love to tell you everything that Dr. Sandra Stotsky said about her questions and concerns that were ignored by her fellow Common Core English Language Arts Validation Committee members, about how she believes, as an expert, that the standards are so lacking in content, and about why she refused to sign off on them. I also wish I had time to tell you everything Dr. James Milgram said about the poor quality of the math standards, and why he, as a member of the Mathematics Validation Committee, wouldn't sign off on those standards. Worthy of note, unlike me, Dr. Milgram believes that nationalized education standards are a good thing. But he said, as he spoke of the Common Core, not these standards.
Please wrap up.
Okay. I don't have the time to share all the reasons I believe Michigan should run far and fast from the Common Core, but I would be happy to email you my 13 typed up pages of notes that I took at that conference. I suppose it would be easy to get lost in the language of your legislation and its false promises of local autonomy, but the truth is, it's nothing more than a resolution allowing the camel to keep its head in the tent, so I hope that you will vote against it.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Representative Janetsky. Representative Daly first.
I'm sorry, Elaine. Hi, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Just real quickly, did you follow up after you dealt with your the people at this high school. Did you go on to the school board? Did you take it any steps further than that?
No, I haven't gone to the school board. I have followed up with people in the district several times, and just as early as last week or the week before last, they were still telling me about their power standards that they have. So I do need to go to the school board. I just haven't had the opportunity yet.
Thank you.
And Representative Janetzky.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Ma'am, thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate an awful lot of what you said. I'm wondering, do you have a copy of that syllabus that shows a curriculum completely devoid of novels? Or
I don't have it with me, but I have it at home and would be happy to scan it in and email it to you.
I would love a copy of that. And
Okay.
secondly, thank you very much for delineating between the strict English degree and the watered down English education degree. Someday
Yes.
we'll find out what collusion goes on between our Department of Education and the colleges of education statewide.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate you. And we have Ann Burns.
Thank you so much for your service, particularly to my family, who are educated in the state of Michigan. I am Annie Burns, mother and educator of 5 of Michigan's children. I spent last night wondering what value I could bring to this discussion. It didn't take me long to realize that I am the most important voice in this debate because I am a parent. Nothing is more important to me than my children's education, and so today I represent thousands of parents who feel the same way. Thousands of parents who cannot be here but want to be. Thousands of parents who recognize that our children are amazing and see them as the hope of this country's tomorrow. We see their education as our greatest responsibility, and because it is, I am asking you to vote against this resolution and stop Common Core. We have many concerns with Common Core, but for the sake of brevity, I'll mention 3 reasons we want to stop its implementation. First, the implementation of Common Core standards and smarter balanced assessments in our nation's schools takes constitutionally mandated authority for education from the states and hands it to the federal government. This is accomplished insidiously and under the guise of improving education. On its face, local governments still retain control. However, when tests are aligned to the Common Core, a national curriculum is automatically created. What is tested will be taught. Teachers and parents will no longer have the freedom to teach by proven successful methods, nor will classic refined sources be acceptable. They simply do not exist in schools that are now aligned with the Common Core. Once this authority is given to the federal government, it can never be taken back. Federal race to the top money is being used to lure states into adopting Common Core standards. This introduces a bureaucracy into the educational system that will never be accessible to the teachers and parents who value the child above all else. Second, in 2011, the FERPA law was changed to allow the dispersal of directory information on our children to third parties. This removes privacy from their lives. It also trumps any premise that our identifiable information will be, quote, safe and secure. That horse has already left the gate. Third, we're not foolish enough to think that these changes will only affect public school students. Homeschool families will be coerced into using this same curriculum so that their children can score well on the ACT and SAT. Score well, not know more or do more or be more, simply comply with the test. We're not interested in our children complying with a dumbed-down educational system. We want more for them than that. True educators seek to inspire. They work to create a spark that drives the student to explore, to seek for himself, to continue learning for a lifetime. Common Core represents a downward rolling snowball we cannot stop. It rolls on, and taking with it our freedom to direct our children's educational lives, their privacy, and their educational quality. We're simply not willing to give that up. Please vote against this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Ms. Burns, are those your children?
They are.
And Ms. Barrett? Ms. Barrett,
Beret.
are all those your children? 3 of my 5. Would you, all you kids, stand up? I just want to thank you for participating and being part of the Education Committee. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Paul Stankiewicz of the Michigan Catholic Conference. Reminder, we try to keep it to 5 minutes or thereabouts, if you would, so we got time for a few questions if needed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. 30 seconds. The Michigan Catholic Conference has no position on this resolution. You'll never hear me speak shorter than this.
And that's it.
That's it.
Wow. Any questions? Thank you for your presentation.
You're very welcome.
And keeping within the time limits. We do have 2 cards not wishing to speak and support the bill. We have Wendy Larvick of the Michigan Department of Education not wishing to speak and supports, it's not a bill, the resolution. Gary Nayet, did I say it right? I apologize. From the Great Lakes Education Project. Pardon? Those are all cards? All right. Several more cards. Bear with me if you, whoops, I'll turn it over. Several more cards. In support of the resolution, not willing to speak is Julie Rowe of AFT of Michigan. Not willing to speak and support the resolution is Bob Kefkin of MASSP. Not willing to speak and oppose the bill or the resolution is Tom Klopfenstein. Not willing to speak and oppose the resolution is Joan Klopfenstein. Not willing to speak and supports the resolution is Harrison Blackmund of the Democrats for Education Reform. Not willing to speak, supports the resolution is Allie Bush of the Grand Rapids Area Chamber of Commerce. Not willing to speak and support the resolution is Karen McPhee of Ottawa Area ISD. Not willing to speak and supports the resolution is Dave Sipka of Muskegon Area ISD. Not willing to speak and supports the resolution is Chris Glass, West Michigan Talent Training, or Talent Triangle, sorry. Not willing to speak and supports the resolution is Kevin Konska, Kent ISD. Not willing to speak and supports the resolution, Jennifer Smith, MASB. Not willing to speak and supports the resolution, Emily Laidlaw of MAISA. Not willing to speak, supports the resolution, and Brad Bilodeau, MASA. Not willing to speak, supports the resolution, Lindsay Case of Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce. And with that,
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The committee will go at ease. I ask all committee members to remain in or near the committee room. Thank you.